Welcome to the Pan Am Football Mock Draft Hub. All 2021 mock draft coverage can be found right here, including weekly mock drafts, prospect evaluations, and general draft and team building topics. Welcome back to Pan Am Football with Max Dean. This is going to be our 2021 mock draft for the NFL, version 1.3. So hopefully this one will have a little bit more shelf life, as it is not coming out the Saturday evening immediately before games start. Alright, so this is going to be a similar format to our last mock draft. I'm going to try and move quickly through it. I'm going to try and be efficient. As always, in the comments, let me know who your favorite team is. Let me know if you like the pick, if you disagree with the pick. Already having some good conversation. I like it. Last week, I did not realize that Garrett Bowles had signed an extension mere hours before I recorded the video. So obviously that made a pick for the Broncos void. But we will take that into account this week, and of course we have our updated draft order. So again, first overall pick. Even though the Jets are my team, there's really not much to talk about here. Some people are saying, what if we look at another prospect besides Trevor Lawrence? It doesn't really make sense to me, because Trevor Lawrence is the best quarterback prospect in a very long time. The success, multiple years of starting, pretty solid competition, and even if you don't feel the competition was that great during the regular season, he's been in the college football playoffs 2 consecutive years, won a national championship, then lost a national championship. The physical traits are all there, the athleticism is all there, the polish is there, the mechanics are there. Just a very, very good prospect. So, boom. The Jaguars at pick number 2. Justin Fields is, again, the easy selection, for me at least. You can make arguments for the other... You can make arguments for some of the other quarterback prospects, but I just don't know why Justin Fields, again, has the physical traits, the polish, just the acumen. Some of the other guys we'll talk about when we get to considering them for picks. Again, if this is the draft order, Penei Sewell has to be what you're looking at for the Bengals here, because they need to protect. They need to invest into that offensive line. Depending on how free agency goes, I guess you could consider going elsewhere. But as it stands right now, he's just too good of a prospect, and it's not like Jonah Williams is horrible, but he is not what's going to make you pass on Penei Sewell here out of Oregon. The Dallas Cowboys still at pick number 4. They still have the same needs as before, and nothing here really changes that. I mean, they're not going to go Micah Parsons for reasons that I stated in the last video. They invested a first-round pick in Leighton Vander Esch. They invested money into Jalen Smith. That's not going to be easy to walk away from just yet. It just doesn't make sense to make their team better. They have investments in wide receiver as well already last year with CeeDee Lamb, and the financial investment in Amari Cooper. Cornerback, they could use help here. So if they're not going to go Gregory Rousseau for the edge, then it would be cornerback. Or, it could be Kwity Paye. That's possible as well as edge. But let's say to mix it up, since I've had them taking Rousseau, I think in both of the last 2 drafts, we'll go cornerback for them. So they're going to look at Caleb Farley. They have Chidobe Awuzie, and they also have Trevon Diggs, who they just took in the 2nd round last year. But they probably could use safety a bit more. but they need cornerback help. They really haven't had a good coverage unit since Byron Jones left for Miami. So we're going to take Caleb Farley here, the very physically gifted cornerback out of Virginia Tech who opted out for this year. San Diego Chargers. Once again, they need a left tackle. I think it will change the dynamic of their offense. I think it will allow them to be, and here's the thing, yes, Justin Herbert is playing exceptionally well, and they do have weapons, but a left tackle is going to allow them to have a more dominant running game and diversify their attack. They really haven't had a good running game since Austin Eckler went out. And a good running game, you really don't want to rely exclusively on one running back because running backs get hurt often. And so you want a good, dominant offensive line to run the ball, pass protect, and you're also protecting your investment in Justin Herbert. Okay, so we're going to be looking at a tackle. We can look at, just to switch things up a little bit and not do the same thing all the time. I like Samuel Cosmi a lot, but we're going to go with Christian Darrisaw here out of Virginia Tech as well. So we got two Hokies going back to back. The Philadelphia Eagles, how far they've fallen. So again, last time I had them go Micah Parsons, even though I didn't really think that's what they would do, but I had them do it just to mix it up. But now, even though they went wide receiver last year in the first round, they need that position so badly. Now, they need offensive line help, but the question is, with all of the guys that are coming back from injury, between Brandon Brooks, Isaac Sumalo, Lane Johnson, and for some reason I keep forgetting the name of the left tackle they took in the first round a couple of years ago, Andre Dillard. If all of those guys come back from injury and look like good, I mean, you don't expect to get injuries to that extent all the time. So I think they could use a center. I have mocked Creed Humphrey to them when they were picking a bit later, but let's say all those guys come back. They still have a pretty good defensive line. They could take another edge player, but they obviously need help at wide receiver. Now, they might address it in free agency, but looking at what we have here, Jamar Chase is an excellent prospect, and it might be their only hope to kind of salvage Carson Wentz because it's going to be extremely hard for them to do anything else but roll with him for another year. And if they do go with Jalen Hurts, then an excellent wide receiver certainly is not going to hurt his development at all. The Carolina Panthers at number 7, they need a tackle. That's one of the places that I consistently return to for them. Just, again, because Russell Okung is getting older. He's had injury issues. He's no longer under contract at the end of this year. And left tackle is it's a position that you really want to solidify. You don't want to just wait around on it. The one question is, do they like a quarterback here? Because if that's the case, since none of the two other prospects have gone yet that are really first round pick worthy, then they have their choice in either Trey Lance or Zach Wilson. Question will be, what kind of player do they like there? I mean, yes, they have Teddy Bridgewater, and if they really, really like Teddy Bridgewater, fine. I mean, go for it. But I tend to think that they're going to move on from him and not have him as a 6, 7, 8, 9 year starter. So when are they going to do it? Probably better now, even if they let him sit for a while, have a bridge, and then move on. So let's go. I think that that Matt Rule will like the leadership characteristics of Zach Wilson. Trey Lance is physically better. He has a higher physical upside, but with significantly less football played this year, I do feel like there may be a recency bias towards Zach Wilson. So we're going to go with Zach Wilson out of BYU as the future franchise quarterback for the Carolina Panthers. And this leaves the Washington football team with maybe not their number one option at quarterback, but considering one of the best is still on the board, it's a no-brainer. Alex Smith is going to get them through the year. He may get them to the playoffs. I wouldn't be surprised, but you need to move on to someone with significantly more physical upside and youth. So we're going to go with Trey Lance from North Dakota State. Since there are no quarterback prospects on the board and an interior defensive lineman has not presented himself as being worthy of a top 10 pick in the draft, at least as of right now, let's see what we want to do here. They could use a linebacker. I'm not going to make it a priority. Quarterback, again, it could be somewhere they look, but it depends on what the new general manager and coaching staff feel like they have in Matthew Stafford. Because they have Matthew Stafford, it's not a dire need. So, they could go with a second-round guy to develop. They could wait a year if there's nobody right up there. I will say that consistently, Jalen Waddle as a pairing to go with Kenny Golladay, I feel like just makes an excellent 1-2 punch as a wide receiver core. It gives you guys who can do all kinds of different things. You also have DeAndre Swift. You also have, what's his name, the kid, TJ Hawkinson at tight end. So you have a really nice group of skill players. So the question is, do you do this? Do you take Jalen Waddle and really round it out, or do you look at your defense and try and improve that? Now, on the edges, they have Trey Flowers, who was signed to a free agent contract a little while ago. I think it was 2019 in the offseason. They have both Romeo Okwara and Julian Okwara. I think Romeo Okwara is their starting defensive end at the moment. I'm not really blown away by any of them. I know Trey Flowers is a solid player, but I'd like to get better there. So, again, picking high in the second round, you may be able to get a nice accent player to Kenny Golladay. So even though I feel like this is a great fit, I'm not sure that the value is there when you compare the edge position, because it's just such a premium position. So we're going to go with Kwity Paye for the Detroit Lions here at pick number 9. All right, number 10, the Atlanta Falcons. They also desperately need an edge player. If Kwity Paye was there and Greg Rousseau was gone, they would have gone with him. I feel like they'll go with the best edge player remaining on the board, which in this case is Gregory Rousseau out of Miami. The Miami Dolphins, Micah Parsons. If Micah Parsons is still there at 11, it's the perfect fit for them. They have a few different types of guys as linebackers, but this is a do-it-all linebacker. This is a linebacker that never comes off the field, that can perform any role there we go. That they can perform any role that you want him to to perform. You don't have to sub guys out. You don't have to limit your scheme based on what a guy's capability is, because he can do everything. Okay. Probably look at offense for them with the second first-round pick. Now, the Denver Broncos at pick 12. They need sorry, just got a message from my wife. That's going to stay in this video most likely. Okay, so they need cornerback help, and it says edge, but again, they have Bradley Chubb and Von Miller. So in theory, both of those guys may come back. I kind of think they will. It's tough to say. If they do, they can wait and draft a slightly more developmental edge player. I think quarterback is an interesting need for them as well. It's funny that it's not listed here at all, but you know, some people really believe in Drew Lock, and I guess there it is, way in the back. But I feel like that they could really upgrade in that position as well. Like I said, they extended Garrett Bowles, so the left tackle position, which I have prioritized in mock drafts previously, is not of the same need. They could use a right tackle, which is the case. Not sure if they want to take a second tackle anyway. I think Jawan James opted out, and he's the right tackle, and he'll be coming back. So maybe they'll just roll with him. Let's go with cornerback. They're going to take Patrick Surtain, the second out of Alabama. The Chicago Bears. Now, Jalen Waddle is a good prospect, but they have Darnell Mooney, and I'm not saying that he's as good as Jalen Waddle, but they have a similar style. And if you don't re-sign Allen Robinson, which is what would give you the need at wide receiver, then you're going to want a bigger body guy to come in and at least fill that role. So, quarterback, you know, this is a team that may go after Sam Darnold. I don't really see them necessarily trading for any of the really expensive guys. One of the reasons that Sam Darnold is more... the reason he might fetch a better price than what his play has necessarily dictated is that he's still under contract for a pretty reasonable amount of money compared to other quarterbacks. I mean, like, who else are you going to trade for? If you're going to try and get Matt Ryan, you're going to have to trade a lot because the Falcons take a huge cap hit, and he's still pretty expensive. You know, any of the guys that might be available, whether it's Jimmy Garoppolo or Matthew Stafford, which probably would not be the case, or Kirk Cousins since it's in division. You don't have a ton of options if you're the Bears, so I feel like Sam Darnold is someone that they would target. So we'll pass on that with on a quarterback, even consideration with the first round pick. Offensive line is something that they could really use. So let's get a tackle in and not put Sam Darnold theoretically in the same position that he's been in New York in the past couple of years, where he's just, you know, getting pressure in his face nonstop. So if they need to move the left tackle to the right side and upgrade the left and then have a pair of tackles, then great. You know, whatever it takes. But let's get a nice athletic tackle in from Texas, Samuel Cosmi. And, you know, they might just franchise tag Allen Robinson. Might be what I would do if you don't necessarily know how things are going to go. Franchise tag Allen Robinson, upgrade the offensive line, trade a second-round pick for a quarterback, and are all your needs fixed? Maybe not necessarily, but that would go a long way for them. Minnesota Vikings. They're making a push with Kirk Cousins this year. You know, again, long term, they may like to upgrade the quarterback situation, get a cheaper guy in later, but let's not dwell on it right now. I have looked at, where is he? Wyatt Davis for them in the past. I think that considering the fact that you just invested in a running back, a very good one, you might as well make his life easier for as long as possible. Dalvin Cook can really run around you, shake you, or run over you with a full head of steam. If he gets going, Wyatt Davis is going to do just that. They just waived Pat Elflein a couple of weeks ago because he just wasn't getting it done. But Wyatt Davis would upgrade either side. He could probably move on from Ode Ibushi. I think he's their right guard right now. So we're going to go Wyatt Davis. Big-time guard out of Ohio State. The New England Patriots caught a little bit of flack for mocking them a cornerback in the last mock draft, but you just have to remember that they are in a bit of a transition year right now. They have 3 solid cornerbacks, ranging from solid to very good. Stephon Gilmore is only under contract for 1 more year, and he wants to get paid. They were strongly considering trading him if the right offer came down around the deadline. J.C. Jackson, the undrafted player, is from 2018. He is scheduled to be a restricted free agent, I believe, 2018, 2019, 2020. So they could put a restricted tag on him, and they could push it down the line a little bit. Jason McCourty is scheduled to be a free agent. So they don't have to take a cornerback, but I think it would be smart for them. I think the youth at the position that they value so much would be wise. Anyway, let's look at what's here right now. I will say that a player like Jalen Waddle might be too good to pass up because I don't think I've had him here available when the Patriots have picked before. They lack offensive skill players, so they could go defense, but considering Jalen Waddle is still here, that's a guy that I could see Belichick really setting up some stuff for. So we're going to go Jalen Waddle, boost that receiver core and just general offensive playmaking group. San Francisco 49ers, they could use something different at quarterback, but again, they don't have to force it. They may be interested in Sam Darnold as well. Probably not as interested as the Bears. I think that the need is less desperate. But interior offensive line would definitely make sense for them in terms of adding to the team, adding to a strength. But they need a cornerback. I said this for the last mock as well. They have so many guys that they need to pay. Richard Sherman he may not get all of his, he probably won't get all of his incentives this year because he's been hurt. But Jason Verrett has been playing very well, but I believe he's a unrestricted free agent at the end of this year. I'll just double check that while I'm talking just to make sure. But they have to pay Fred Warner. They have to pay Trent Williams. There's a bunch of these guys that need to get paid. They've already paid a couple of guys on the defensive line. But you saw last year that they had to part ways with DeForest Buckner, and then they went first round with that position just because they needed to stay cheaper to pay some of these other guys. They paid George Kittle. So let's take a quick look here at Jason Verrett. He is an unrestricted free agent, yes. And what about Emmanuel Mosley? Let's take a look. He is also an unrestricted free agent, and I just want to take a quick look at Richard Sherman as well, just to double check. He is also an unrestricted free agent. So all three of those guys are unrestricted free agents. That means cornerback is an easy priority. J.C. Horn is a very good player. Pick 16 is a perfectly fine place for him to go. Let's do something different aside from Jay Tufele, because I feel like I've been saying that he's going to go to the Raiders for a couple of mocks in a row. So they do need pass rush. Max Crosby's really the only one who's been offering consistent pass rush. So let's see. They could add some youth to the offensive line as well. That's certainly the case. But I think, as I said before, it's not the move that helps round out the roster the most. Based on the 12 personnel, not the personnel package 12, but what I call 12 personnel. There are 12 players that you need on your roster to really be competitive with a playoff push. And you got your quarterback, you got 2 pass rushers, you've got 3 good offensive linemen, you've got 3 offensive skill players and 3 defensive skill players, defensive playmakers. So with that, they've got 3 good offensive linemen, even if they have to downgrade at one of those positions. So what do they need? They need that second pass rusher. So let's take a look at who we've got. They've got Joseph Asai. I think they would like a more true 3-down defensive end guy. Why are the edge players so far down here? They're farther than they should be, I think. I think Aiden Hutchinson is a guy that they're going to like. 6'5", 278, big defensive end who they can move around. Good athlete for that 278-pound size. I think he is the physical type of player that would go there. I know that they just drafted... what's his name from Clemson in 2019 at the defensive end position, but he hasn't really been generating a consistent pass rush. I think there's a little bit of a limited physical upside there, and I know they liked him as a team player kind of guy. I mean, a good locker room presence, but I'm not sure that he's just panning out as a big-time edge rusher. So we're going to go Aiden Hutchinson here. Baltimore Ravens, they could definitely use a safety. Again, this big board, it's predictive board, I guess they call it, but I mean, it's probably not very different ultimately from their actual big board. But again, let's go through the team. They have cornerbacks, they're set. They have linebacker, went in the first round last year. They could use wide receivers. I don't necessarily expect them to go wide receiver in the first round 2 out of 3 years, but if they really feel like it's a need, maybe they will. Offensive line, I think that's where we're getting back to where we need. I've had them take a tackle before. What about interior offensive line? You know what? I can't remember who I had them take last time, but Creed Humphrey is up there as an option for them, as well as Trey Smith. At 18, this is going to help their run game a lot. especially if they don't want to. It would be wise, in my opinion, to not just overly rely on schemed runs for Lamar Jackson, because you just put him in harm's way too regularly. If you allow him to use his athleticism and speed to scramble regularly, that's different. You generally have less guys coming at you. You can slide more easily. You can hit the sideline more easily. When you scheme a run for him, you're just putting him in a position to be tackled more often. And you're also kind of taking away the option to pass as well. So Matt Skura, I know, had some issues snapping the ball. I like guard for them. Center might be a slightly bigger need. So we'll go Creed Humphrey for the Baltimore Ravens at pick 18. The New York Giants, it's funny just because they jump so high simply because they win that terrible division. But again, they need an edge player as well. They went from picking Jamar Chase in my last one, and now obviously he's not even remotely available. But I think that wide receiver could still be an excellent selection for them. So they've got a bigger body guy in Darius Slayton. Took me a second to remember. And he's got some speed as well, but he's not like a speed player. So Devontae Smith might be a nice pairing to go with him. If you're going to roll with Daniel Jones, give him some weapons, some guys that can really challenge down the field, open things up for the running game when Saquon Barkley returns next year. All right, the Arizona Cardinals. I don't want to just pick Kyle Pitts for them every single week, so we're going to switch it up. Let's look at their defensive line. They've got guys who can play the line. They could use another pass rusher, but I think that maybe a developmental guy would be there because it's not a dire need. The linebacker unit, not necessarily a huge deal. Cornerback unit could use an infusion. The cornerback unit could definitely use an infusion of youth and athleticism. That's an interesting place to look for them. I'm tempted to go with Travis Etienne and just, in a similar style to the Chiefs, just continue to add offensive playmaker after offensive playmaker. So if you don't go Kyle Pitts, you could go Etienne, because he's an explosive back who can hit you with the run, but also can hit you with the passing game, like very, very effectively. And so that, they have an option. They can either have a running back who can just kind of function within their scheme and is carried along by Kyler Murray in the passing game, or they can have a guy who can really attack you there. So they have a choice right now to either overpower the offense or try to overpower the offense and let the defense kind of tag along, or they can try and round themselves out a little bit more and go with defense, because Eric Stokes could be a good option for them as a corner as well. Jay Tufele wouldn't hurt either. I wanted them to go defensive line in the first round last year, but they ended up taking Isaiah Simmons instead. Let's go with let's say that they're going to bring back Patrick Peterson for one more year. Let's give them the offensive playmaker. So we're going to go with Travis Etienne. Their current running back, Kenyon Drake, is only under contract with the transition tag, so he's going to be an unrestricted free agent. So Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Well, they would have liked to have Travis Etienne right there. Let's look at... I'm not really sure what they need per se. I think both of their edge players, I believe, are scheduled to be unrestricted free agents. I know that Shaq Barrett is playing on the franchise tag, so he's obviously going to be one. What about Jason Pierre-Paul? He's under contract for another year through 2021. Let's just do a super quick check of what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers salary cap situation looks like, because just even with a quick glance, like, you don't know everything, but I'll be able to tell if they have any kind of space to do something with Shaq Barrett. They could, but the issue is that they also have the offensive skill players to decide what to do with. Chris Godwin is going to be an unrestricted free agent, as well as Antonio Brown, although certainly Brown is less dire. Okay, so thinking about that, let's think about a couple things. They're in an interesting position where they're going to have to pick who they keep. They can't just keep everybody. What if they want to bring back the edge rushers and they decide to trade Mike Evans? How much do they save? They don't save much. They really don't. So looking at this, I think edge is a big question for them, because I just don't think they're going to be able to bring back Shaq Barrett and the wide receiver, Chris Godwin. They're going to have to pick. And I know Brady's going to want to bring back Godwin. So if Brady's there, they're going to have to spend the money on offense and probably the draft picks on defense, I guess. They may just have to. And then just taking a quick look at, this is one that I haven't looked at too much, just because the pass catching running back is such a need for them that it's kind of an easy pick if Etienne's available. But William Golston, they've got him for another year, but they might have to let him go just to save some money. What about... Let's see here. What about Ndamukong Suh? Yeah, so the defensive line, actually, that's a big thing. This might be a good spot for Jay Tufele to go. Just because they may be able to release a couple of those guys on the defensive line, bring back Vita Vea, and then Tufele as a first-round guy. Then they might be able to pay a few more guys and just make some things work. So this might be a way where they can bring back a lot of the most impactful players and let a guy like Golston go, who's, I think, I just looked at it quickly, but I think he's making like 5.5 next year with no dead money if he's cut. So that might be a way to free up cap space, rework a couple of deals, and then maintain maintain as much of your team as possible, especially at the impact positions. The Miami Dolphins at pick number 22. All right, let's move a little bit more quickly. Wide receiver. Speed guy would have been nice to pair with Devontae Parker. Rashad Bateman is a very good wide receiver. He's not necessarily a speed guy. They could use some pass rush as well. Do they go with Osai here? They invested a bunch in the offensive line last year. What if we go with... They could really use a running back too, but I'm not sure that's the way that they're looking. Let's see. Let's give Tua some more weapons. Because the defense has been playing very well. I think the linebacker is a bigger need than pass rush. They've been getting after guys. They play coverage a lot. They use their linebackers to blitz and rush. So let's go with Terrace Marshall Jr. and give Tua a playmaker and give him a real opportunity to succeed. Okay, the Indianapolis Colts. This is another team that would be in the Sam Darnold sweepstakes as an option to come in and take over for Phillip Rivers if he no longer is going to be playing for them. There are other options. You have other guys that you could trade for, but just Sam Darnold is the one that makes the most sense. He's the youngest. He has a lot of upside. There's a lot of belief that he may be able to be a real franchise quarterback in a better situation. He is the Jets also have a guy who came over from the Colts front office, so there are connections there. So, it just makes sense for them to at least strongly consider it. Again, they need a speed wide receiver. I think more so than a Rashad Bateman type guy. They have a good offensive line. Someone pointed out that, Anthony Costanzo considered retiring before his extension. He's under contract for 2021. If he retires, obviously, tackle would be a huge need. I think that wide receiver overall would be less of a need. So I guess here's the thing: if Costanzo retires or doesn't retire, it even might be wise to go with a tackle like Rashawn Slater and say, hey, we had our in San Francisco, their tackle retired right before the draft. We don't want to go into training camp and have him be like, I'm not going to do this again, and then just be SOL and not have a tackle and have to trade for one, So do it, go for it here, and even if you have both, great. And if you go down to one, then you've set yourself up to not be in a bad situation. So thanks for pointing that out. That is a very legitimate concern as far as team building. Cleveland Browns. Owusu might be an excellent choice for them. They really need linebackers, and he is a very, very athletic new age type of guy. I think it is Owusu Karamoa, I think. But yes, they could use a cornerback on the other side, but this makes a lot of sense to me right now. All right, Jaguars tackle. We're going to go with the tackle out of Notre Dame, Eichenberg. We want offensive line to protect Justin Fields. Easy choice. Joseph Asai is perfect selection for the New York Jets here. He is an outside linebacker edge type. Perfect fit. Tennessee Titans. They also need an edge badly. Defensive line, wide receiver. They need a wide receiver to go with. So here's the thing about AJ Brown. I don't know if he's a true number one guy. He's a big play guy for sure. He's got size, speed, power. But I think Rashad Bateman is a little bit more refined, and you're losing Corey Davis. Doesn't seem like they're going to bring him back. I think Rashad Bateman is a nice pick. Yes, it's true. They do need defensive help. but I'm not sure that there's an edge player anymore who will bring the same thing to the team that Rashad Bateman will. Bills, what cornerback is available? It's always the number one place I look for them. Eric Stokes out of Georgia. And I guess I should say more in case other people haven't watched any of the other mock drafts I've done. They really need a cornerback on the other side of Tre'Davious White. You paid him a lot. I don't think that means skimp at the position on the other side. It just means get the best kind of player that you can that doesn't cost as much against the salary cap. And that usually means the first round for cornerbacks. And so Eric Stokes is going to slide right in. Will probably start immediately for them. With the safeties that they have, hopefully his job won't be too terribly difficult. Then 29, the Green Bay Packers. Jair Alexander's playing very well. Cornerback here is a need. It's dependent on who the guys they bring back are. They could use help. Shaun Wade. The thing is, Shaun Wade is he's ranked really highly, but he hasn't played super well on the outside, and he may project as a primarily inside cornerback, which is a valuable player, but probably not first round type valuable. There have been nickel corners who have had long, very productive, successful careers, but if you're drafting a guy in the first round, I think you expect more than that from him. Tackle is something I've also, in much the same way that you want a high quality but less expensive cornerback to pair with an expensive cornerback, I feel similarly about the tackle position. So Jalen Mayfield on the right side would be a significant upgrade over the free agent that they signed from Tennessee. I think he played last year. I think probably will tell you everything you need to know. All you have to do is look at how much they paid him. Let's take a look at the Green Bay Packers salary cap. Let's see. See how much they paid him. I think I said Tim Kelly or something like that last, but it's not. It's a Ricky Wagner. They paid him a 2-year deal worth $5.5 per year. That's not high quality tackle money. So we're gonna have them go with the right tackle from Michigan, Jalen Mayfield. Either protect the young guy if they decide that they want to get frisky and trade Aaron Rodgers, or give Aaron Rodgers more time to do damage down the field. The Kansas City Chiefs. Kyle Pitts is still available. Is that where they go? Kansas City Chiefs are interesting because they've got both tackles who are good players. They probably could stand to let one go for monetary purposes. So, a tackle like Dylan Radunz would work if they want to trade out the more expensive player. They could go defense. They could go on the defensive side. They have interior defensive line. They've got pass rush on the outside. They've got... See, the thing is that their cornerback play is they just have no choice but to outscore teams based on their ability to stop teams. Excuse me. So what if we say we could go with Asante Samuel Jr. here and then try and turn the ball over more. So get ahead, rush the passer, and then have guys who aren't just, doing just enough to get by, but are really making plays, turning the ball over. All right. New Orleans Saints at pick number 31. What do they need? They need a quarterback of the future. Who's available? Let's go with Kyle Pitts. I think I've drafted Pat Freiermuth to them before as well. Kyle Pitts is a guy who fell because I didn't see a team that, aside, I love him to the Cardinals, but I decided to make them go in a different direction. He fell a little bit because I didn't see another team that would be like, this is the guy that we need to make our offense blow up. And if you don't have a team that's just like, oh, this is the guy that's going to totally change our offense, then, tight end just isn't a position that is as valuable to me in the first round. It just, the best paid tight ends are basically at the bottom of the league in terms of all of the other positions. As you go from quarterback down the list, you're getting all the way down to running back and tight end as the least well-compensated players. So what that means is the league doesn't value them the same way that they value other positions. So if that's the case, then why are you looking for them in the first round unless you feel like your offense can really be changed by adding one in there? And I only really consider that to be the case with really dynamic, explosive offenses because I trust them to exploit the mismatches more so. So that would be teams like Kansas City, but I just don't think that they need a tight end as much, at least not a first-round tight end, considering Travis Kelce is still there, still playing excellent football. So that would be teams like the New Orleans Saints or the Arizona Cardinals, so on and so forth. And finally, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's go tackle again. It would be big for them. They could go with Vera Tucker as well, but probably tackle is more important. They haven't had a really big-time tight end in a long time, but I'm not sure they ever really had a big-time tight end. They've always had guys who produced, but not at an elite level. I just don't think they prioritize it. They always have very productive wide receivers, and that's no different right now. So let's look at tackle for them. Yeah. Tackle is where we want. They could use a cornerback as well, most likely. They could use an edge player to take over for the production that they'll be losing from Bud Dupree leaving in free agency. But I think tackle is more important. Protecting Ben Roethlisberger is the number one priority. Okay, so just to take a look here at the end, if anyone's curious, this is how the draft turned out. We had quarterbacks going in the first and second pick overall, and then we didn't have our third go until the 7th, and then we had 8 go right after that. So this is the Pan Am Football mock draft for the 2021 NFL Draft version 1.3. And we'll do a few more before the season is over, once the draft order is updated after week 13, and so on and so forth. And then I think we'll be able to really get going once the draft order is solidified and the coaching hires are made, the general manager hires are made, because we're going to get a lot of insight into what a lot of these teams are going to be doing, especially at the top. Teams like the LA Chargers, do they have a new coach, or not? Teams like even Philadelphia Eagles, even though I think it's less likely. The Lions, we'll have a good idea of what they want to do. We might even get a grasp on who goes after Sam Darnold or who might go after a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo and anyone else who might be available. All right, guys, thanks very much for listening. If you have any comments at all, let me know. subscribe to get all of our mock drafts every single week. We'll do other videos as well. I just got a request to do a New England Patriots salary cap video, which I will go ahead and jump on. And any requests, let me know. And again, let me know if you like the pick. Let me know if you would have picked somebody else instead. And of course, whoever is your favorite team. Have a good night, guys.